you know, we as Christians sometimes forget that other people are saying, you don't look like you're following the true king. In fact, the true king must be somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And then the pilgrimage, the search begins outside of the church. And you never look back to realize that actually there were signs of life there. It's very true. And I really do think when I talk to people that have left the church, that their choice may be a valid spiritual decision.
Mm-hmm.
That this is fake and I'm not going to have anything to do with it anymore, is actually one that Jesus is pleased by. However, as a rejection only, it's only half the story. Mm-hmm. Because then the search becomes, you know, you kind of say, I got to find the real thing.
Yeah.
You know, and then we don't mean Coca-Cola, as the old commercial used to say. It's the real thing. We're talking about a search for that place that is, in fact, a palace of the kingdom of God, a palace of the greater palace. Within it, people who serve the true king, mm-hmm. and a place where people grow up from childhood, birth to grave, learning how to be fully realized citizens of the true king.
Yeah. Well, I wonder if that's not one of our difficulties in our culture now. It's that we just really, the concept of kingdom and kings,
yeah.
is just so far removed from us that we constantly refer back to either these terrible kings we've seen in movies or in mm-hmm. books, or these power plays and battles we see inside of them. And so I just kind of wonder if that plays too much into how we approach this whole thing.
Yes. And we've been disillusioned by some of the monarchs in our own time. I mean, the media has presented us with a spectacle of ignoble behavior by some of the great monarchies, the surrender to commercialism, the surrender to self-indulgence, the surrender to mixed relationships, poorly made marriages. I mean, we obviously see that. And part of that is because the structure of monarchy has been created so that it has a machinery of its own. And it's very hard for someone of noble intent to break out of that structure. And that's another reason why some of the great stories involve kings or princes who have to be alienated from their own structure to reform it. Now, one of the challenges we're all having right now is the general climate of cynicism around monarchy. And there's been this 2 or 3 weeks of sentimental reminiscences about how noble Queen Elizabeth was. Although the honest biographers have said she also had a temper. Mm. You know, there were certain things that made her less than perfect. Yeah. But now the big question might be for a Christian to ask, without becoming cynical and sarcastic, is will we see signs of our new king living up to the standard? Mm-hmm. You know, demonstrating leadership, demonstrating restraint.
Right.
I think the challenge for Christians in leadership has always been restraint. Because Christians tend to give a lot of liberty to their leaders, a lot of trust. Mm-hmm. And the question becomes now, maybe what we have to ask ourselves is, how do we observe and how do we promote leaders who live like Jesus under self-restraint?
Right.
Because if there's one monarch who lives under self-restraint on earth, it's Jesus. I mean, who could call 12 legions of angels, 72,000 angels stand by, to rescue himself, but who, for the sake of the glory set before him, endures, submits to the cross. Those are important things for us to look at too. I think sometimes we actually are in churches that are in crisis, and the crisis is not so much, is it going to become worse, or will the leaders fail to have insight, or will they fail to have followers, but how many people will have the patience and restraint to keep it alive, to bring life into it, to bring their faith and their love actively into place, to grow that church as a thriving palace in the kingdom of God, a mansion. Jesus talks about preparing them, but we have a role to play in making mansions here too.